In this video, we are going to go over the entire home buying process when it comes to purchasing a home in Grapevine, Texas. I'm going to break it down for you to make the process feel not nearly as overwhelming as some might think or feel going into it. There are 4 different topics that I want to discuss. Number 1, the 4 reasons why people want to live in Grapevine, Texas. Number 2, the 7 things to consider when purchasing a home. Number 3, what to expect when you're in the thick of it. And number 4, everything you need to know once your offer has been accepted. To get started, we need to look at Grapevine from a desirability perspective, and it definitely has its perks compared to other parts of the Metroplex. Number 1, Grapevine is at the center of the Metroplex, making it easy to access both Dallas and Fort Worth, as well as other growing areas. Number 2, DFW Airport is basically in Grapevine. So if you're someone that has to travel for work, this could be a huge benefit to you. Personally, it only takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to get to and from the airport. Number 3, the schools. Depending on what area of Grapevine, you can feed into one of 3 high schools: Grapevine High School, Colleyville Heritage High School, or Southlake Carroll. Niche.com just came out with a list of the top school districts in the DFW Metroplex, and believe it or not, number 1 and number 2 were Southlake Carroll ISD and GCISD, making this a huge reason why families want to live here. And number 4, Main Street Grapevine. Downtown Grapevine is a historic area that is known for good food, live music, tons of shops, and a ton of events held multiple times a month. It's also the Christmas capital of Texas. We welcome tons of people around the Metroplex to this area just about any time of the year. Now, let's discuss the 7 things that you need to consider when purchasing a home in Grapevine, Texas. When we spoke about schools earlier, I mentioned the different areas belonging to different school districts. There's a ton of overlap between Grapevine and Colleyville as they belong to the same independent school district. But if you prefer Southlake, you really need to be on the furthest northwest side of Grapevine in this super small pocket. So I would figure out if that's going to make a difference to you or not when it comes to purchasing a home here. Number 2, majority of the homes in Grapevine were built between 1980 and 2000. When you get closer to the historic downtown area, you will find even older homes that have the appeal of walking distance to everything that comes with Grapevine, Maine. You can find some newer homes sprinkled in around the Dove Loop area, but most of the new construction that you find is going to be lots that were bought and built on, not necessarily newer development neighborhoods. Now, the third thing to consider is price. In Grapevine, your average home value is likely going to run you between $500,000 to $600,000. You may find some smaller homes that could use a little bit of work and come in the low $400,000s or maybe even the high $300,000s. The newer homes that I've touched on a little bit, probably going to be closer to the $700,000 to $800,000 range. And we do also have our fair share of $1 million and up properties. But let's just say that you've saved up a little bit of money for your first house and you'd like to take a loan out at 5% down. If you were to look at purchasing a home for $500,000 in Grapevine, your monthly payment would come in right around $4,000 a month if there was no HOA and you were an ideal borrower. Obviously, this could all fluctuate depending on the person. Next, let's focus on the condition of the property. Are you someone who's handy or likes to fix things? If so, you might be okay buying something that is going to be more of a project. But if you're not, you might want to buy something newer and more turnkey. Also, it's always good to have a realtor in your corner that has an extensive list of resources that you are able to use at your disposal. Like I said, majority of the homes in Grapevine are 30 to 40 years old now. So do you want to pay less for the house and more maintenance, or do you want to just go ahead and buy something that you shouldn't have to worry about for a while? Now, one thing I think it's always good to consider is what kind of market are you in? When the market has low inventory and a massive amount of demand, homes here go fast and usually for over what the market value is. However, at the time that I'm making this video, interest rates are on the higher side, meaning affordability is lower, and even though we're still in low inventory levels, homes are sitting on the market just a little bit longer, and sometimes you are able to get a lot fairer price. Don't get me wrong though, the good ones still go fast, and the good ones are likely priced more appropriately. When you see homes that sit on the market for longer periods of time, they are more than likely listed over the true value of what the market believes the property is actually worth. If you're coming from a lease or you're renting, it's always good to know what kind of time frame you need to give notice. Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? Is it 90 days? That way you can ensure you give notice in an appropriate time frame that gives you enough time to secure a home and make sure you aren't paying any fees to break the lease. Lastly, make sure that you are utilizing a realtor services that knows the Grapevine market. They know the product, they know the neighborhoods, they know the people that live in the area. I'm not saying you have to call me, but make sure that you align yourself with someone who can ensure that you find exactly what it is that you're looking for and help set realistic expectations for everything that Grapevine has to offer. Now, you're thinking that Grapevine, Texas may be the spot for you and you're looking to take that first step. Well, the first step is to speak with a mortgage professional who can help secure a home loan that allows you to purchase a home. You typically need to provide your most recent pay stubs, the last 2 years W-2s, some form of identification, and fill out a mortgage application. From there, they're going to run your credit and give you an idea of what you can afford. But once you have the approval from the bank, you're dangerous. You're ready to go out and make an offer on a home. Now, some of you may have heard the myth that you have to put 20% down to buy a house, and the fact is that's just not true. As I mentioned previously, 5% down is typically the lowest you will need to bring for your down payment. However, the FHA loan program allows that you put 3.5% down, or if you're a veteran or someone that has served in the military, you likely qualify for a VA loan, which allows you to bring 0% down. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer in here that once you get to around the $800,000 sales price range, you may not be able to put 5% down on a conventional loan, and you might have to switch to a jumbo loan program, which could require you to put 20% down. Now, one question that I get asked a lot is how will I know when it's the right house? Some people are quick to pull the trigger, while others are extremely hesitant. The truth is, if you decided that Grapevine is the area for you, you're only willing to buy a property that needs minimal work, and you have a $500,000 pre-approval letter from the bank, then you should be writing an offer after viewing 8 to 12 houses. Now, don't get me wrong. I've shown clients one house and they bought it. I've shown 40 houses before a client writes their first offer. But the more and more people that I work with, I've determined that the 8 to 12 rule is pretty accurate. Let's assume you found a house. You're ready to write an offer and it gets accepted. Now what happens? Within the first 3 days, you're going to be required to turn in option money and earnest money to the title company. Now I understand I may have thrown a lot of terms at you that you're unfamiliar with at this time, but let me explain. We'll start with the earnest money. Earnest money is a variable amount that's written into the contract as basically a good faith payment. It's part of your down payment portion that you bring to closing. In a neutral environment, we typically see this amount come in around 1% of the sales price, meaning if you pay $500,000 for a house, $5,000 goes in as earnest money. Now, in a more aggressive market, you could see more written into the earnest money as a way of making your offer stand out against the competition. Now let's talk about the option money. This is a fee that you pay that basically gives you a grace period. If you decide that you don't like the house or you're having second thoughts, you're able to back out during this period of time. If you run an inspection, which I would advise you do no matter what, during the option period and it comes back and the house is falling apart, you are not obligated to go through with the purchase. Now this amount varies as well, and the more money you put here, the stronger your offer is going to be. For example, let's say I request a 7-day option period for $100, and there's another offer on the table that's requesting only 4 days as the option period at $400. You can see why the latter may be more attractive to the seller. Also, keep in mind that if you back out of the contract during the negotiated option period at any point in time, you will lose the option money or the couple $100, but you're still going to get back the earnest money or the $5,000. Now, I mentioned before the title company was who the money was going to. They are the company that is handling the transaction. They're balancing the taxes on the property, making sure there aren't any liens or monies owed on the property, taking into account the mortgage that's still owed in most cases, also factoring in lender fees as well as their own fees and making sure that everything is situated when the time comes to close on the property. Now, I know I mentioned here the fees that come with the home purchase, so I want to prepare you that the down payment isn't the only money that you come with closing. Typically, there are what we call closing costs involved, and I like to prepare my clients by giving them a safe number to go off of. I typically expect you to pay around 2.5% of the sales price to close. Now, sometimes this could be less, and sometimes it could be more, but I've learned that 2.5% is typically a good number to go off of. Now, let's say that you make it through the option period. What happens now? Well, there are a few things that typically come to you, like the title commitment, which is the title company verifying that there's clear title and showing they have the docs necessary to basically do their job from the balancing perspective. There's the survey, which is a drawing basically of what you own. In this, you can see fence lines, you can see if there are easements above or below ground, as well as other stuff that I'm not going to get into, but I do want to make a point here. Keep your hands on that survey after you receive it at closing. Because when you go to sell the house in the future, if for some reason you don't have it and you get stuck buying a new one, these usually run about $500 to $600. The last and sometimes the biggest hurdle is the appraisal. So I want to spend a little bit of time here. An appraisal is ordered by your lender, and it's an outside perspective on the true value of the home. An appraiser's job is to look at the homes that have sold recently in the same or nearby neighborhoods that are like the property you are looking to purchase. Now, depending on what the value they determine, the lender takes the lesser of the two when deciding how they are going to lend out their portion of the money. So here's an example. You offer $500,000 for a home, and the appraisal comes in at $485,000. The lender is only going to loan on $485,000, meaning that if the seller decides that they want the original $500,000 that you offered, you must now come up with the difference of the $15,000 at closing to purchase the house. Depending on the state of the housing market, you may write into the contract on the front end that you will pay a certain dollar amount over the appraisal if the home comes in under what you offered. In a more neutral market, depending on the situation, you might not have to deal with this on the front end, and then you can basically just cross that bridge when you get there. I've personally seen appraisals come in $50,000 short, and we weren't able to negotiate. I've seen them come in $50,000 higher than what we offered, which gets me to my next example. You offer $500,000 and the appraisal comes in at $515,000. Well, remember, the lender is only going to lend money on the lesser of the offer value and the appraised value. So in this case, you walk in knowing your home is technically worth more than what you're paying for it. Lastly, I do feel the need to point out that if the appraised value and the offer value don't match, and you have to renegotiate the sale price and are not able to come to an agreement with the seller, and you decide you want to back out, you are still able to get your earnest money back or the $5,000 that you put down whenever you contracted on the house. However, the option money or the couple $100 is the seller's to keep. The last out that you typically have is the amount of days that it takes to receive full approval from the bank for the property. This again is a variable amount that typically is written into the contract as anywhere from 14 to 21 days once you contract. Again, this is dependent on market conditions. If your mortgage broker is unable to give you confirmation that the loan's gonna go through, or unable to provide you with full approval within the given time frame that you've put on the contract, it may be in your best interest to back out with your earnest money or the $5,000. Now, most home loans take on average 30 days to close. However, I've seen some close in as little as 13 days, but I would definitely plan on a month. So let's go over your total estimated cost to close on a $500,000 house. So let's say you made the offer, $500,000, you get accepted. You're putting 5% down, which equals $25,000, and you have an estimated 2.5% for closing costs. That equals $12,500. That means that in order to close on this house, you're likely going to need to bring $37,500 to closing with you. Now, a question that I get asked a lot is, when does your monthly mortgage payment actually start? Typically, the money that you come to closing with covers the month that you purchase the home as well as the next month. So an example, you purchase a home on March 4th. Your mortgage payment schedule won't start until May 1st. Now, subsequently, if you close on March 31st, your mortgage payment still starts on May 1st. A lot of my clients desire to close earlier in the month, giving them closer to that 60-day time period before their first mortgage payment starts. However, depending on the climate of the housing market or just the situation in general, you might need to offer a less desirable close date for you in order to get your offer accepted. And lastly, a lot of first-time home buyers think that they are going to be sitting across the table from the sellers on closing day. Now, for some, this could be a huge disappointment, and for others, I'm going to save you from suffering a heart attack, but I want to assure you that this won't be the case. Hey, if you liked this video and want to learn more about the real estate transaction process, Grapevine, Texas, or the greater DFW Metroplex, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out or comment below. I'm always happy to help, and I hope to see you on the next video.